Coming up, we are going to discuss prepping for Halloween Horror Nights with a very special guest. Live from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida, this is the Diz Unplugged Universal Edition. This is episode 99 of the Diz Unplugged Universal Edition. The Diz Unplugged Universal Edition is brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel, experts at helping you plan the perfect universal vacation. Visit them on the web at www.dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Diz Unplugged Universal Edition. I, of course, am your host. As always, Craig Williams, and today I am joined alongside Rhino Clavin.
Hello. Oh my gosh, I wore the same shirt as last week.
Yeah, so did I. What were we thinking? It's disgusting of us, but that's the type of human beings we are. And then back on the controls, as always, of lately, Oliver Green.
Hello,
associate
everyone.
Producer and everything else that I've
All
called him
round
from time to time.
handyman.
Can you, I hope you drop an album someday, and in my brain I was just working out the title of it. It's called The Associate Producer of Love. That's your album right there. I'm just letting you know. I'm gonna bookmark that. We're gonna get back to that later.
That's terrible. So, today we have a very, very big, important episode for us. We are a week and a day out from Halloween Horror Nights, the official start of it.
So excited.
So, we want to bring you a special episode helping you to prep a little bit more for the event. And as we've discussed in the past, my experience with Halloween Horror Nights is only about 6 years deep at this point. And I know we are all still pretty recent to the event. So we have gone out of our way to bring in an expert. And I can't say we went that far because he did volunteer for the task. But joining us today all the way from the United Kingdom, Kent, should I not say where you're actually at?
Well, unless I get people banging my door down, I don't know. But yeah, no, I can say I'm in Kent.
But we are joined today alongside with Christopher Ripley, author of the Halloween Horror Nights, the Unofficial Story and Guide. That is the correct title, right? The unofficial story and guide behind the world's greatest Halloween event.
No, that was the title last year.
That was last year. Sorry.
Oh wow.
You just can't get the stuff nowadays.
Butchered it. I should have left it with the first part.
No, it's called The Complete Survivor's Guide to Universal Orlando's Halloween Horror Nights.
Oh, so it's specific to ours. Then that's nice.
Well, it is. However, the event doesn't actually start in Orlando. So the book starts in Hollywood.
Oh.
So there's a little teaser for you for later on.
Yeah, I do have to throw it out there. I apologize, but I have still not had the opportunity to sit down and actually read your book. But I do.
I'm going to order it on Amazon right now if I can.
Yes, exactly. I need to actually just take the time and sit down and read, but it is so hard to find the time to actually do that from time to time. But thank you so much, Chris, for sitting down and talking with us today about this. I know you're an extreme expert on this stuff. You've written an article for us right now that is currently on the Diz Universal site. You do many other things around the world. Do you want to just talk about some of the things that you do from time to time with Universal?
I've got a new book I'm working on at the moment, so I've had to sort of sit down and just remind myself of all the Halloween Horror Nights history. So I'm working on a new book. It's in a similar vein as Halloween Horror Nights, so that's coming on at the moment. The main thing that I do at the moment is the Scare Zone podcast with Logan Seculo. I don't know if any of you guys have had a chance to listen yet.
I actually have. I went out of my way to listen to your episode with James Keaton.
Oh, cool.
Yes. That was
I'm subscribing right now.
Have to listen episode, in my opinion, for any Horror Nights fan.
What was the name of the podcast again? I'm sorry.
Scare Zone. All one word.
Okay, Scare Zone.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. In fact, that's been our most downloaded show. The first most downloaded show was Mike Aiello. We did an episode with the creative director of Halloween Horror Nights. And that got shared by Universal and by him and by quite a few others. So that kind of went almost, I wouldn't say viral, but it nearly went viral. And then we've had quite a few other like actors and sort of production crew from some of the films that are being presented at this year's Halloween Horror Nights. And then along with that, we're getting quite a lot of people now asking us, saying, "Oh, I've worked on Halloween Horror Nights. I've done this. I've worked on this movie. Can I come on?" So we've got a bit of a list now of people to get through. So, but at the moment we have gone weekly, just because we're sort of running up to Halloween Horror Nights, and the downloads are still going crazy. But I should imagine come November, the episodes might be fortnightly or monthly for a bit.
The episode I did listen to, it definitely got me wanting to listen to more, especially like the Jason Terrell episode. I am super pumped to listen to that one. A lot of good material out there. And so of course we'll have links in our show notes page to the Scare Zone podcast for everyone out there who wants to listen. Again, based on the episode that I listened to, I extremely highly recommend it. It is very entertaining. You guys do a fantastic job with it.
Oh, thank you. A big shout out to Jason as well, actually, because he's a big supporter of what I do. And he's, I don't know if you know, but he's written quite a few books for Disney, like the Haunted Mansion Guide and things like that. So he's kind of nurtured me a bit as a writer, and he was really helpful putting together this edition of the book. He came up with a lot of stuff for me and helped me out a great deal. So he's a good guy, Jason.
Very cool. Yes. Go out there, buy it now. Get it. So let's jump into this, and I want to start by going over your specific background and history with Halloween Horror Nights. So, like, how long have you been actually attending Halloween Horror Nights?
Well, since 2000, and then I've missed a couple of years in between, but I've been trying to go every single year. Last year, I probably went a dozen times to the event. With tours and things as well. So this year, unfortunately, just due to work commitments and other things I've got going on, I'll probably only be getting there twice. But I've got, with our website, hhnunofficial.com, I've got people that help me put that site together. So they're going to help me sort of get all the information. And we've got some touring plans going on and wait list projections. So they're going to help me with all that sort of data. So, yeah, it's all good.
That's incredible. So what is it, though, about Halloween Horror Nights that hooked you on, that made you want to keep coming back year after year?
Well, the thing is, I mean, Logan and I, we both say we don't actually like horror films. I mean, I know it sounds absolutely bizarre.
Yeah.
A lot of people go, "Really? You don't like horror films?" Well, I do watch them, and I definitely watch the ones that they have at Halloween Horror Nights. But it's more to do with the thematic design, the way that these houses are put together. The fact that, and I'm sure you can attest to this, everyone in your room there, that when you can walk through a movie, you've got the music from the movie and the atmosphere, and you've got the characters and the settings, and actually feel like you're in that movie, then I think that Halloween Horror Nights does its job. And to me, that's what hooked me in initially, and that's what kept me coming back all these years.
Do you have a background in theatrical development, anything like that? Or is it just something that's been a passion?
Well, I work in building conservation, so I look after restoring like old buildings.
Wow.
So I work on real castles and come to Florida to look at modern castles.
That's great.
But yeah, so I don't really. I am a big fan. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Hitchcock and Kubrick. I went to a Kubrick exhibition just recently in London. I took some photos because they had all of the carpet from The Shining in there.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So I'm a big film fan. I do like all different types of genres of films, but that's where I sort of come to it. And of course, Logan, who I do the podcast with, he is an actual filmmaker, so he comes to it from a more of a technical point of view than perhaps I do.
Yeah, and I think that's I know that's how I'm starting to develop to it, as well as Rhino, because
that was the appeal for me. Like I'm not necessarily like, oh, I love a haunted house, but I just love how much goes into the creating of the houses, where it is like what you said, where it's like you step through that window and you're in the film. So it becomes this interactive. I'd say as far as what I know, the most I don't know the appropriate word here, the most immersive that you can get into a film out there,
Definitely.
the experience. I mean,
Yeah.
for some people that's horrible for them because they're always horror movies, but it's kind of like that I don't know. If
Yeah,
they could bring that's how Diagon Alley came around, I feel like is like that's what Halloween Horror Nights is, but on a larger, more invested scale.
I'd say it's the next level up. It's the next level up from watching the film itself. It's I hate to put it in layman's terms, but it's just dropping you in the middle of it. It's just so immersive. You get to actually live the film. When you're watching that film, it's on the other side of a piece of glass. There's nothing there. You're experiencing it firsthand. So
I don't know what movie theaters you're going to that have glass screens in them, but
oh, you know what I mean.
No, we don't. But that's okay. So I've got to go through a bit of the basics with you as well, too, here. So you've been coming since, you said 2000, right?
Yeah.
Which
So
year?
I started at the event when Jack the Clown started at the event.
Perfect timing.
he is Jack the Clown.
Yeah.
So which year has been your absolute favorite?
Do you know what? I get asked this a lot, and I think the answer changes all the time. But at the moment, I think 2007 or last year are my favourites.
Oh, really?
Last year
Yeah,
was
I mean,
good.
they were both quite similar years, actually. 2000 last year was basically like 2007 on steroids. It was just like a bigger version of 2007. So that's it does change all the time. But at the moment, that's what I'm going with.
And I've got to ask.
sorry.
I was going to say I've just got to ask. 2007. What number Halloween Horror Nights was that? Like, was that Halloween Horror Nights?
That was 25 minus 9. Or minus 8.
Yeah, that makes
Seven-
sense.
17.
Yeah.
17. There we go. Okay. Yeah.
Is there a specific house that stays with you that you're like, that's the house that has to be beat? Like, do you have a favorite house that you've had over the years, or I don't know? I'm just curious. One that you
sometimes bad films make good Halloween Horror Nights houses. So, for example, in 2007, you had a house called Dead Silence.
Oh yeah,
which
I
is from
remember that.
a B movie picture that not many people have seen. I don't know if you guys have seen that one.
I have not.
No, but I remember the previews for it. Like I remember when it came out. Yeah. Oh no, wait.
Yeah.
Is
So-
that the one with the? That's not the one with the doll. Is it the
Yeah,
one that
yeah.
James Wan did? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is that one. Yeah. The people from Saw.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was his post.
I've seen it on Netflix.
Yeah, I have actually
I
seen the
haven't
movie
watched it,
too. I'm
though.
sorry.
Yeah, I mean it's not a great movie, but it made a really good house. I mean another example, The Wolfman. Not a great film, not a successful film, but the house for that was so immersive. I mean, you did literally feel like you were straight into the action with that one because they had stunts going on and special effects and all sorts in that one.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
I mean, I keep mentioning the IPs, but I mean, there have been, tons of original ideas that they've done over the years. I mean, from, the Bloody Mary year. I mean, that was a very, very successful year when she was the icon that they created. I mean, she hasn't really ever come back.
I remember
for legal reasons.
the billboards they put up on I-4 when they first were advertising that year. People were getting in car accidents when they first put them up. It was right near the Cayley exit. And
really?
I remember the billboard. Yeah, because it was one of my first few years in Florida. I think that was like 2008 or 2009 or something.
2008, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And I remember this horrifying billboard that went up that had this like mirror on it. And I just remember hearing that it caused a couple fender benders right there because people just were so distracted by this massive billboard. And I remember like, oh, it's too scary. I'm never going. And then now, of course, I'm a huge fan of it.
Was this the one?
Maybe.
Because that's scary.
Yeah. It was intense. Needless to say, I haven't seen one as scary since then. But yeah.
I feel like I've missed so much.
Yeah.
Well, that year, for example, they had a really detailed website, and they don't really go down this route anymore, but they would start building momentum and anticipation for the event back in, say, I don't know, perhaps May, even before that, perhaps. Oh. So you would get sort of a little update every week, and this scene would build up. So with that year particularly, it was this very long drawn story about how this psychologist, she was gradually becoming insane herself with her patients, and then she basically turned into Bloody Mary. And then there was this detective called Boris Schuster or something. I can't remember how they pronounce his name now, but he was sort of investigating Bloody Mary just to try and sort of work out what was happening. So you're sort of following the clues with him, and then I think in the end he disappeared or she killed him or something, but it sort of tied into the house. He actually does still have a window in Universal Orlando. They actually left his window there, his detective agency.
Oh,
Where's
So
that
it's
at?
in It's in the, you know where the Blues Brothers perform on that New York street?
Yeah.
It's on the opposite side of the road. But
I
down the other end.
I just look. I'm not even kidding. I just was staring at that window the other day when we went when we did the walk around, and I was where the psychic area was.
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah.
staring and just like looking, and I was like, oh, there's a detective window right there. I don't know why that caught my eye, but I was just like, oh, I wonder if that means anything.
Spooky.
Now I know, yeah.
All of those sets are all based on famous movies, you know, Godfather, Vertigo, etc., etc. But that particular one is from 2008's Halloween Horror Nights.
That's cool.
That's very cool.
That's really awesome.
Oh, I enjoy that. So Rhino asked you about your house. Do you have a scare zone in particular that has stood out over time?
That's more difficult. I mean, I was looking at this, going back through the records. I mean, the scare zones, particularly for me, I think every year they seem to get better. So I think like last year, I mean, if you was to take the Psychoscarapy house scare zone back in the New York area, I don't think that could be beaten. I mean, it had mini shows, it was vast, it had a huge number of scare actors. I mean, that, to me, I think they raised the bar with scare zones, particularly for that one.
Yeah, that was my second favorite one last year. And the only reason that wasn't first is because I am a huge classic monsters fan. So
Yes,
it couldn't quite win that, but I spent a lot of time in there, especially watching the costume contest show. That was just highly entertaining, especially whenever they had actual different cast come up there to do that show. I loved every little bit of it. But yeah, so, gone over all that now, but let's talk about the history itself. You said your book, it starts even before Halloween Horror Nights and Fright Nights at Universal Orlando. It starts in Hollywood. Do you want to just give us a brief overview, not giving away all the secrets, on Halloween Horror Nights and how we got to today?
Well, as you said, it did start in Hollywood, and it was a very small event that they did back in, I want to say, 1986. That was when it started. I mean, that's quite a long time ago. And all they had that year was a terror tram. So they basically took the usual tram tour and they just updated it a bit and put a few scare actors there. And they sort of made more of the Psycho House and the Bates Motel. And they created more of a sort of party atmosphere on the upper and the lower lots. They got a few musical acts, and it was definitely more of a party. What stopped the festivities was towards the end of the run. I mean, it sold out. It was so successful. It was around the time when people started to use credit cards, so people were sort of pre-booking and things like that. So Universal were really pleased with the numbers. Unfortunately, there was a serious accident on the lower lot on the tram ride. One of the scare actors actually died one of the evenings. He got caught under the actual tram. And passed away. Yeah. So they had that, which was the sort of tip of the iceberg, and then they had a lot of trouble with the party atmosphere. If you let a lot of younger people suddenly have loads of alcohol in a theme park, it kind of without having all the controls that we have today, perhaps, there was quite a lot of issues, a lot of teething problems. So then they kind of looked at it and they said, well, it was very successful financially, but it was a heck of a lot of trouble. So they started to relook at it. And then that was, I believe, the year when they had quite a serious fire on the backlot. So the backlot tram tour itself got changed around and moved around. Anyway, for want of a better reason, to get into the conclusion of it all, they decided that the event, they'll put it on hiatus, and they basically, they just stopped it for the time being. Then going back over to Orlando, when that opened in 91, I'm sure you're aware, but when it first opened, they themselves had a lot of problems. A lot of the rides didn't work,
yes.
I mean, particularly the Jaws queue. I mean, in fact, it was Jaws that actually led to the event coming to Orlando, because the first house that they built was actually in the Jaws queue, because it had all been built, it had all been ready, and then they had this litigation issue with the contractor that built the ride, and then Sid Sheinberg, the president of Universal, decided that they needed to do something to get people through the gate. They'd had a lousy summer in the following year, and decided that they needed to do something in order to bring the people in. So they decided to go down the same route and have more of a party atmosphere. And they built one house, which was the Dungeon of Terror. I believe. Just checking my notes. It's been a long time since I've talked about this. Yes, it was the Dungeon of Terror. Over in the Jaws queue, and it was an absolute out of the park. They knocked it well out of the park with it. It was a huge success, and then it's basically built on from there. But Julie Zimmerman, who she had worked in Hollywood for Steven Spielberg and various other producers on the backlot at Universal, she was tasked with coming to Orlando when it was just a parcel of land to actually help create and design the theme park. And when her role as project manager had basically come to an end and the park was open, this was her first task after building the theme park. She was given Halloween Horror Nights to basically devise and come up with what they should do. So she kind of looked at what they did in Hollywood, and then she kind of took it in her own direction. So it was thanks to Julie, really, that the event exists. And she actually wrote the foreword in my book. So she's been very, very helpful,
Oh,
Julie.
wow. Awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, and she's got so many great stories. I mean, I ring her up sometimes. She's rattling on about, Steven Spielberg and this guy came in and this actor, and I'm trying to remember who they are. But she's really great.
Oh, that sounds absolutely incredible. So the event comes to Orlando, and over the years, it has evolved, gotten bigger and bigger. We're all aware. Again, none of us got to experience, but they even had the year where they crossed over from Universal Studios into Islands of Adventure as well, too.
Yeah.
Albeit that was a one-time happening, right? It never happened again?
2 or 3 times that's happened.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Logistically, Islands of Adventure is a difficult park to manage in terms of the footfall that go through, and in terms of putting actual houses in there. Yeah. So it is quite difficult to look after. But they have had it as a dual event, so they've opened up portions of Islands of Adventure, so you can sort of enter in the studios and then walk up by Blue Man Group and enter in the back way. So they have opened up some of the park in previous years.
So awesome. So it did evolve in that way, and over the years they've added more and more intellectual properties. They had these icons, but when do you think the icons became a big important part of the event?
Well, the event has always had icons, per se, but it's just that people refer to the icons as sort of Jack the Caretaker, the Usher, Storyteller, Eddie, Bloody Mary, and all the other ones that they've had just recently. But from the get-go, I mean, they had the classic monsters. They were the icons of the event. And I've got quite a few interesting stories about some of the relatives of the people that played the original monsters in the book. Some of them were and weren't happy with their faces being used for Halloween Horror Nights.
Oh, wow.
You have to check that out.
Yeah.
Anyway, but back then as well, Julie used to call it the Wild West because she told me on a number of occasions that their budgets were really limited back in the old days. So in terms of paying the appropriate license fee, perhaps, didn't happen. I mean, they definitely did have, girl on bed covered in pea soup being pushed around the park.
Oh, that's great.
So people say, "Oh, The Exorcist, that's brand new to the event." She's never been at the event. Well, she has. She was actually there in year 2, but as I say, she wasn't actually technically called that and hadn't paid any royalties to Warner Brothers for their use. But back then, it was a little bit more Wild West, like she says. And also, another thing that I've put in the book this year as well, that she told me some great stories about how, do you remember back in the day, they used to have, Hollywood used to send them props from current films, so like Jurassic Park and The Mummy, and they would sort of exhibit them in the park.
Yeah.
Well, she used to make some of them go missing and then repurpose them in the house.
Oh, that's funny. That's awesome.
So, I mean, even films like The Flintstones has ended up, she's nicked a load of props from that and put into a haunted house.
So I've got to ask, where did the Flintstones props end up? What house?
It was the year, I think it was the year that it actually went to Islands of Adventure, funny enough. There was a Savages scare zone in the Jurassic Park area. And loads of people running around with loincloths and things. And I think that bits of the, like Fred Flintstone's car and that got turned into, turned upside down and then had extra props put on it and things. So the most shocking repurposing of a prop was, and you've probably seen it recently, did you see the picture of Steven Spielberg kneeling down in front of the Triceratops from the first Jurassic Park?
Yeah.
And then people were tagging it and having it as a meme, saying,
Like,
look
he
at this
killed
hunter.
the dinosaur. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that went to Orlando to show the public. She took it, cut its head off, and then they had this year where they, like the monsters had mutated into half people, half dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And she had this in one of the houses, all, completely destroyed, covered in blood. So that iconic prop from that film, Halloween Horror Nights.
Oh my gosh, that is insane.
That's crazy.
I have like no words. Right now, honestly.
Yeah. It's not in the Smithsonian. It's probably in a landfill or somewhere now, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to meet Julie and become her best friend at this point. All these stories.
She's great, Julie.
It's just wow.
So I have to ask you this though too. So you do Hollywood, or do you prefer Orlando, or what's the? I know the book is about Orlando, but do you yourself like to go to the Hollywood one as well, or?
Well, I have been to the Hollywood one. The Hollywood one, as I'm sure you've been, that the theme park itself is very different to Orlando, isn't it? It's not, it's a bit with the hill. It's a bit disjointed, isn't it? It's some of the attractions are better and some of them aren't. The problem with Halloween Horror Nights in Hollywood. Have you been to Halloween Horror Nights in Hollywood?
Yeah, I went last year for the first time, and then
I was there the year before that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got nothing against it. I think it's good, and I think the you can compare and contrast it quite a bit with the way they do their different things over there. I mean, they have a much heavier emphasis on IPs over there. And I do like it. I absolutely love walking on the back lot. I mean, walking up and touching the Psycho House and the Bates Motel is just a dream, really. Yeah. But I do definitely prefer Orlando over Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think overall Orlando is the better event. The year that I was able to go to Hollywood, though, it just it was the intellectual properties that they did have. They had the From Dusk Till Dawn house there, which they had the brothers out front doing a whole little bit, whereas ours they were just featured right at the end in the cantina shooting. And so it added that extra level of immersion into the story by having them out there getting up in everyone's face saying don't go in there, stuff like that. And their Alien versus Predator that year, you ended off with the Queen and this giant puppet, and there was the intellectual properties there. I felt that year in particular, it's my only year I went, I preferred those. But one of the things I love and appreciate more and more every year in Orlando is our original properties, the original creations, the people, Mike Aiello and his team, and everyone who works on Halloween Horror Nights out here. Whenever they create these original houses, it's just it's breathtaking.
Does Hollywood not have original houses?
They do.
I don't think I went in any when I went last year. That's why I think I only did because I very distinctly remember IPs, but I don't remember the
year
ones.
I was there. They had one that Slash did the soundtrack for it, and there was poop smeared all over the walls, and it was disgusting. So it definitely wasn't as memorable as.
Not in the good way.
Our original houses, I'll say that for sure.
Well, their Terror Tram this year is an original. It's Eli Roth, I think, has designed this sort of strange clown that's been living on the back lot rough somewhere. And it sounds a really good story, actually, that one.
Yeah, I was impressed just seeing the picture of the clown and some of the stuff their HHN was tweeting out on it. It looks like it could be interesting. But let's come back over here. What icon is your absolute favorite, if you had to pick one? I know for some people that's like picking a child.
Well, I think I'm contractually obliged to say Jack the Clown, since we're trying to get him to come back on the show. So I think, but funny enough, Jack the Clown's been in the news a lot today because he's the icon for Singapore this year.
Yeah, I saw that.
Call that. Yeah, so it's confusing the heck out of people at the moment. I'm getting people messaging me going, I thought Chance was the icon. No, Chance is the icon. It's just Jack is now at Singapore. So it's getting a little bit confusing because there's sort of a crossing of the streams of marketing.
Yeah.
No, well, that's what happens whenever you live in our social media world.
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
is wide out there. I enjoy Jack too. Obviously, last year that was my first real experience with Jack. I think in my first year I attended was 21, so I had Lady Luck that year. But that was my first year that I was working at Universal, so I did not understand anything that was happening with Horror Nights at all. So I wish I could go back in time and teach myself to pay attention to it a little bit more. I probably would have got more out of it, but I'm very excited about Chance being the icon this year. Last year in the Carnage Returns stage show, as much as I love Jack in that, I thought Chance just dominated that show entirely. What are your thoughts on Chance?
Yeah, I absolutely love that icon. I think she's great. I think the actress that plays Erin, I think she's brilliant. Funny story, one year she didn't play Chance. I think she was in the UK on a touring production, and she was actually played by another actress called Erin. So there's a little fun fact for you.
That's fun.
But the character I think is great. I think this year, I think it may have been a little bit of a mistake not to have had a show for her as the icon. I mean, some years they don't. In the past, like Bloody Mary or Lady Luck, they haven't really done a show for them. But I think from what I've heard, she may be appearing in her own scare zone. So that's something to look out for.
Yeah.
But no, I'm really pumped for that.
I don't remember where I saw that. I know I saw it on Twitter. I don't know if it was something you passed along, but potentially a stage being rolled out with her on it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was our site had that. So we hope what we've heard is true now. We just because we get past a lot of information, and we try and put as much as we think is worth putting out there. We did put out quite a very good rumor recently about Penn and Teller, and of course that never happened. So something was going to happen, and then it didn't happen. But
exactly.
Penn and Teller were who knows?
Things can change at the last second. They think they're going to get an intellectual property, and things fall through, and
like Scream.
Yeah, you get the Purge. So I was worried that was going to happen for an extra year, and we weren't going to get Horror Story, and we were going to get Purge, because I even heard as of like 2 weeks ago, before they made that announcement, they were starting to pull the Purge costumes out and preparing them just in case. So
yeah. They went to the wire with that one, I think.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that new experience they're offering, that virtual reality?
The repository.
Yeah.
Okay, well, last year they actually trialed this. They got a small bunch of people, sort of Halloween Horror Nights, Legendary Truth followers, and they trialed it in the Mummy Queue somewhere. They shot off that in sort of the Macy's shop area.
Yeah.
And they did a smaller version of it there. And the people that I know that did it last year all told me that it was the most terrifying thing they've ever done in their lives.
Oh, God. Well, Pete...
And I'm talking seasoned Halloween Horror Nights fans here, not,
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Pete, our boss, he has invested heavily in virtual reality systems like the Oculus and Rift, right? Is the other one?
Oculus Rift.
Or Oculus
Rift.
Rift. What's the other one he has? Whatever. It doesn't matter. Anyway,
Vive?
because I couldn't tell you which one it is. But one of the things is when you go in and you can, it's got all the programs that are set in it. There is one that was like, it's a room that you go in and it's like Saw, where you're like looking around the room and there's a TV on and the light starts flickering, and I'm like, there's a little TV you can look at, and then it becomes kind of like The Ring because there's a girl in the TV. And I was even like, with the glasses on and the sound around you, like the way it is, and because your senses about your surroundings change because you're absorbed in that virtual reality area. Like, yes, it can be disorienting and a little nauseating. However, it is terrifying because you're then trying to become that much more aware of your surroundings that you can't become any more aware of because you lost two of your senses. And I don't know, it seems like something like very nervous to try, but very interested to see how they do. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I wanted to do Legendary Truth last year, but they had in Hollywood, they had the statue that everyone would line up behind and get in line for that. And every time they threw out on Facebook or Twitter that okay, get in line for this time, go over there and it'd be 100 people deep.
Wow, they were
waiting
testing that out 2 years ago. In 2014 when you went, you're saying?
Last year.
I thought
Last year.
I was thinking Hollywood for some reason.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So I think it's got promise. I mean, we're going to do it. We have to do it.
Well, they've said you need to allow an hour and a half to complete the experience.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So,
I don't know
just
if I
throwing
could
that one
make
out
it
there.
that far through it. That's the thing. That's like, the houses are fun, and I always say like what I really got into last year was the like repeated experience. Is that, and I can't emphasize that enough. That if you're somebody who you're like, okay, I enjoyed it, it's definitely worth more than one trip and one season because you never get that full experience in one house. Because for me, it's all about like, who is the person behind the corner? Where's the person behind the corner? But then once I become familiar with that, I can go through and really start to look at the settings and the scenery. And we did the show after the first night we went.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember anything afterwards. And so it was kind of like, but now it's all with me now. So but those are just 5-minute houses. I can't imagine this hour and a half experience. Like, I'm worried it might cause psychological damage to myself.
Well, right there, you have to start looking at how you are truly going to plan out your Halloween Horror Night. You can't, if it is an hour and a half long experience and you are only going on one night.
That's true.
You then have to decide on
You got to get the fast passes for sure at that point.
fast passes. Come on.
Excuse me, front of the line. What is it?
Express.
Express.
Fine, we'll get there. Best out of 3.
Someday. My 5th year, I'll get it.
So, speaking of that, I know you are an expert at actually preparing for Horror Nights. And that being said, with adding a repository needing that, what tips and tricks do you kind of have in order to help maximize your time and enjoyment of the event?
Well, the biggest question that I get asked a lot is I get the question that I'm a scaredy cat. What should I do? Should I go? Should I not go? Are my kids old enough? Etc. Etc. So I get a lot of questions about that. So I always say that if you've got any concerns about the level of scares that are in the event, is do one of the behind the scenes tours. Because they will show you where the scares are, they will show you the sets, they may even show you some of the costumes. And that does, I find from people that have fed back to me, that sort of relays a lot of fear. So that's probably my number one tip because I get asked that quite a lot. Have you done the tour, behind the scenes tour?
I haven't had the chance to do it yet. I am doing the Unmasking the Horror tour for the first time this year, September 24th. Don't be a part of my group, people. I'm already going with a friend.
Oliver's birthday.
No, I will get to see it for the first time this year, so I'm very excited. It's just one of those things. It is an extra cost on top of it's aside from the event. You technically don't have to do the event to do the Unmasking the Horror tour. You can do it by yourself. But it was one of those things I could just never get over adding in the extra, but I can't really call myself this huge mega fan if I'm not willing to invest the time and money into it. So I'm doing it this year.
How much is that extra event?
It's $75, I believe, if you do either the morning or afternoon session, and then it is $120 if you do the morning and afternoon session in a combo.
Okay.
I think. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I just put it on my credit card and figure I'll worry about it in a month whenever I have to pay it off. Right?
I think that's a business expense, Craig, if you ask me.
I'm trying to work that angle.
Yeah. Come on, Pete.
So I figure maybe at least you can get the repository and the scare actor dining experience out of it, because I didn't get to do that last year either, and I know this year they're adding it on every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Well, I didn't even know that was a thing, so I think that's like I can work here and not know that's a thing. Then we should be like reporting on that for sure.
Did you do the scare actor dining experience last year?
No, I didn't have time to do it last year, but we interviewed the Tim and Jen Tracker on our show. They had done it, and they loved it, and they're actually doing it again this year, so it must be pretty good.
Yeah, no, I remember watching. I remember watching stuff they were putting out from there, so it looked very entertaining. But last year they only did like 4 nights of it, I want to say.
Yeah, it was a small test, really, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, it was very, very limited. So just another thing for people out there to try if they haven't done before. So, yeah, obviously there's a lot to see, a lot to do. What do you recommend for people who are only doing one night of the event? Is there even good advice to give them, or do you just tell them flat out, add on more and become a frequent Fear Pass holder?
Well, that's probably the best answer. The second best answer is if budget allows, then do an RIP tour where you can backdoor every single house as many times as you want. Well, as long as it's a private tour. If you're in a tour with other people, then you just do one house, and then you can have an hour or so to yourself to go and do some rides and things. But or you also see all the shows as well when you do one of those tours. So if you've got the cash, that's always a really great option. Another couple of other really important tips is if you're going to Universal anyway and you haven't got Express Pass, is go to the park during the day, particularly aim for sort of after lunch kind of time, do a few rides, see a few shows, and then stay in the park. They do allow this. There are specific zones that you can go and sit in, like the Simpsons area or New York, which then, as soon as the event sort of opens, before the gates of hordes of people come running in, you can get in some of the houses that are already open. So you can, and if you've got an Express Pass, don't use it. You can see those houses because there's no queues, and then come back to them later on with an Express Pass. But the other tip that I tell a lot of people that a lot of people don't really realize, and you will have to look at this in the book because it took a lot of time and effort to sort this out, but is to avoid what they call Hell Week. It's a phrase that Halloween Horror Nights fans have used for ages now, but it basically means that there is this week in the calendar where every school is off and there's public holidays. I can't remember now. There's a list of about 20 different things all happening in this 1 week. And then that is the week to definitely avoid. Even if you've got Express Passes, avoid. Because I've known people with Express Passes wait nearly an hour during Hell Week.
Yep. No, I've been in that boat before too, where you have Express, but it doesn't matter. You're still waiting 20, 30 minutes, even longer. If everyone converges on the same house at the same time, there's nothing you can do to avoid it. It's just bad play. Where was I going? I lost my train of thought there. That is terrible of me. So I want to jump back in talking about some of the intellectual properties that we were talking about before. So you mentioned that like the classic monsters were obviously there in the beginning. The Exorcist, unofficially, not allowed. But when did these intellectual properties start becoming extremely dominant over the original ones? Because I feel like 21, whenever I went, that was mostly originals with a couple intellectual property houses, and then from there, it seemed like it was just all IPs once The Walking Dead hit big. When did that really shift? Was that it?
Well, Julie tells me that when the park first opened, the whole ethos of the park was ride the movies. It's a great tagline, and that was the whole ethos behind what they called the Florida Project for them. So she found that in the second year and the third year, and I think the fourth year that she was working on the event, she got quite a few IPs. I mean, I say IPs, but they were Universal properties. I mean, the first ever sort of film-based house that they had was The People Under the Stairs in the second year in 1992. Yeah. And then in the third year, she also had that again, and they did a Norman Bates Psycho house, which actually used the Psycho 4 sets that were there when the theme park was built. I mean, sadly, they've been demolished now, but hey-ho. So, from originally, IPs were incredibly important, and she tells stories about how that she tried to obtain IPs. I mean, I'll tell you a very quick one. Jason might be embarrassed if I tell you this, but Jason Sorrell, he started out, Julie gave him his first job essentially as a designer. I mean, he went off to become a very famous Imagineer, but it was Julie that kind of gave him his start out in his career. And she put him onto Halloween Horror Nights with herself, and it was her and then J. Michael Roddy as well. I mean, all around the same time coming into Universal. And I can't remember I think it was John Carpenter. He wrote a really nice message and faxed it to John Carpenter's office that was at the time on the Universal backlot in Hollywood, basically saying, Dear Mr. Carpenter, please could I use Halloween as a house for Halloween Horror Nights, you know? And they clapped back and said, "Oh, you know, thank you for your interest. We're really keen, you know, blah, blah, blah." But, you know, and then as soon as legal found out, they were like, "You did what?" You know?
Oh my gosh, that might be one of the best stories I've heard.
Yeah. Oh. So anyway, so originally they were very important. And then as time ran on, I think budgets may have been a reason, and other different things, particularly where they expanded to being a resort. You know, things were a lot tighter than they were. I mean, they started off tight. I mean, if she was repurposing Hollywood props because she couldn't afford to put them in the houses, you know, build her own props, then they've always had a bit of a tight budget. And then then you went into the Crypt Keeper era, if anyone can remember him. I know he's coming back this year in a new M. Night Shyamalan produced series or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he was the icon for a short period, and then it really did go into a lot of original content, and then that's when the icons themselves came in 2000. But as you said, Craig, it was pretty much that year that you attended. That was probably one of the last years where it was sort of original content heavy, and it's sort of there's more what's the word, synchronization, if you like, between Orlando now and Hollywood. They were two very, very separate events. I mean, to them, their icon was always the director, and that's who a lot of the younger people in Southern California, that's who they recognize. Whereas over here, we're very much all about Jack. So they were very two different events, and they took themselves in two different directions. Whereas now, there's more sharing of information, sharing of houses, and they together go out and attract new IP holders to come to the event, like The Exorcist, you know, like Krampus. You know, they're talking to them together rather than separately. So there'll be more of that in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, that works out because although they do bring them in together with the promise of being at both events, from the one experience that I had, and I think Rhino can attest from last year, they are vastly different houses because, you know, Mike's the creative director out here, and then his name slipped my mind for the one that...
John Murdy.
Thank you. Yes, he's out there in Hollywood, and they both have different visions for how these houses should work. So it really is, if you want to get the full scope of it, you kind of need to see both. But, of course, we recommend coming to Orlando because that is still the absolute best.
You got to start with Orlando at least.
Yeah.
Like, you got to go there. And then I like to go... For me, Hollywood was like, well, you got to see, like, the birthplace of, you know, Universal and that type of a celebration. But... I do agree. Like, here's the, you know, we're the beacon. We're like the shining light, you know. The fires of hell, I guess, is really what I should say since it's Halloween. But like,
do you have a favorite intellectual property that's been used?
In the past, I'm going back to the Wolfman house. I mean, the film wasn't great, but the house that year was particularly good for IPs. Another very good one, actually, was... back in 2007 again, was they used the Jaws queue and they turned it into the campsite from Friday the 13th with Jason.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah, Jason. And it was that setting with the lake in the background was so on the money for that film. You know, they didn't have to do too much to make that feel like Camp Blood.
Yeah.
Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
Crystal Lake, that's it. You know, they didn't have to do too much. And so when they filled that with all the props and all the costumes and things from various Jason films, that was really on the money that year, that one. And I'm sort of sad as well that you can't do what fans call the Shark in the Dark, which was doing the Jaws ride at night.
Yeah.
I remember the one of the first years I went when I lived here. I was like, oh, we've got to do that because I've heard how great it was. But something was wrong with the attraction when I went to go, and then by the time I went back, it was like a really long wait, and so we couldn't do it. And little did I know the ride was going to close so soon in the future. You know,
I only did it once at night, and that was back while I was still working at Universal, and it was Night of Joy was happening, and for some reason we obviously didn't go to Night of Joy, or what's it called? Rock the Universe. My bad.
Yeah.
I was on Disney mode there. Rock the Universe was happening. That's my bad. You get one, I get one. And so we just randomly were like, let's go ride Jaws at night. We never get to do that, and that was incredible. I was also fortunate. That year 21, that's the year that Saws and Steam was in the Jaws queue, and that was the last house they ever had in the Jaws queue, because then it was closed the next year. I was rescued over from Forbidden Journey to Saws and Steam, and I worked on Halloween night for the final night of that house, and it was one of, I mean, I was in the queue just patrolling, making sure people stopped smoking, all that for most of it, but then I was like, I think I was the third or fourth to last person to actually walk through the house to make sure it was clear, and that's like one of those. That was one of the coolest moments that I was one of the last to ever go through a house like that. But
James Keaton, who plays Jack, he tells a couple of good stories about the Jaws ride itself. In 2001, they actually put Jack the Clown in the ride. So he was saying that you had a lot of people that have done it a million times, and they're just sort of doing it because it's something to do, sit down, So you're going through into the boathouse scene.
Yeah.
And, of course, you're waiting for the shark to come up. I think it was on its right.
Right,
It was coming up from the right. So, of course, that would come up. And as soon as it went down, he would come at you from the left.
Oh, my gosh. That is awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
The other interesting one he tells, I think he may have told it on Scare Zone, actually, as well, was a couple of years, they just had characters dressed up, actors dressed up as the characters from the Munsters. Mm-hmm. So, and they would just literally go around the park. They would go on Jaws, they would just walk around.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love stuff like that. I kind of wish that I don't know. I love when they, not to say that they don't do that anymore or they won't do that anymore, but I love those little like bits of like the little touches like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thrown in the classic.
Just a little
with the
extra.
modern, yeah.
It's very cool. So that is a lot of the things I had to ask you. It's way more stories than I expected. Some of them really, really fantastic. All of it fantastic.
I was going to say
I shouldn't say it that way. That sounds
Yeah.
terrible of me.
The other's horrible.
This has been amazing. Really incredible. You are a genius at all this. So, but we, a couple weeks ago, whenever we did, once all the houses were announced and everything, we listed what we predict to be our favorite houses, ranked from 9 to 1, obviously, and had a very varying list. Not to repeat myself there. So, do you have a prediction this year on how you think the houses are going to be?
Well, the one I'm most looking forward to is Krampus. It's one that I've known about for quite a long time.
Me too.
Yeah, the Krampus house was made by Universal with their deal with Legendary.
Yeah.
And if you're a nerd like me and you've gone over the contract documents, you will see that partnership, it does include Halloween Horror Nights. So there's a lot of stuff going on with that partnership that takes a look at, well, if we build this and make this into a movie, how successful will it be if we then make it into a Halloween Horror Nights house? So they're kind of thinking about Halloween Horror Nights for the first time ever before they actually go into make things, because normally they make the film and then they try and figure out how to put it in a house.
Yeah,
that is really cool.
Yeah, so particularly like with Hollywood, for example, they've built the facade which is out there on the back lot at the moment, which they'll attach somehow into the house. Us, we've got it in the Shrek Theatre, which I don't think is possibly the greatest location to have a house.
Yeah.
Purely because everything that goes into Shrek has to come out of Shrek in record time at the end of the event. So they can't, from what I've heard, they can't build. I wouldn't say they're not permanent because these things all get trashed, don't they, after the event? But they have to build things that can be taken apart quickly.
Yeah.
And if you've ever bought IKEA furniture, no, I won't go down that route. So I worry about that. But that's my most anticipated house at the moment is Krampus. And then definitely Halloween is up there as well.
Any that you are not looking forward to at all? Just be you don't have to answer, but
you don't have to trash anything. But we're just saying ones that you're like, I don't have hopes for, or I don't,
I would like to be surprised by this one.
Yeah.
Well, I think we will all be surprised by The Walking Dead. I think this year, because it's rumored to be its last year, nod, they might be putting a permanent attraction in like they have at Hollywood.
Yeah.
I think they will go out all singing, all dancing with this house. Last year in Hollywood, I found that their Walking Dead was almost identical, but I found it a much better experience over there. I think that perhaps they had more scare actors in there that sort of lent itself better, because I think with that particular house, because they can't have the characters, I think it needs more zombies in order to make it terrifying, because zombies by themselves aren't particularly scary because we've had it so many times now, haven't we? So
They're too slow.
Well, that's been
yeah.
my complaint too, is that it's just the zombies, and for me, there's no. It could be any house. There's no like weight that pulls me into the show. Like it doesn't, other than like the little nod here or there, but nothing was very specific. It felt just I could be walking through any street in Georgia or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
Well, it's like last year. Do you remember? I don't know if you watched the show, but when the kid got trapped between the revolving doors at the shop, the store. So in Florida, you had those mannequins that sort of slowly with the lights. If you remember those, which isn't scary at all. I mean, they're very well built, you know. But then when you got to that portion of the room, I think there was just one scare actor just standing around banging the glass.
Yeah.
Whereas in Hollywood, they had exactly the same scene, but they had about, well over a dozen scare actors in there. And they came, running towards us. That was terrifying.
Yeah.
You know.
I would love to be surprised by The Walking Dead this year. It is going over all of the best moments of the series, and there have been a lot of good moments. So I'm very pumped about that.
It ends with a guy who's going to bash your head in with the baseball bat. That's the last part
I
of
would
the
love
thing
to
when
see
you're walking
if it
out.
would end if you end with the governor walking back and
Not the
forth.
governor, Negan.
Oh, sorry, Negan. Sorry, the Negan, and he's just walking back and forth with Lucille, and that doesn't have to be a scary end, but that would be
just
the
the guy
perfect
at the end doing that. Yeah.
If that's what you want, I think you will both be very pleased. Put it that way.
Oh no, I'm just blushing. I am very happy.
The other thing that's really interesting as well is down near the airport somewhere, they've got this huge warehouse. And I say they probably trashed the Triceratops. It's probably there, but they stock in this warehouse all of the old props from Halloween Horror Nights. So all of the stuff they've had for The Walking Dead is probably stored in that warehouse.
Oh wow!
So for them to bring it back and repurpose it, I mean they do get damaged and they'll have to be repaired, and there'll be things they probably do have to throw out. But you're going to get a lot of stuff from that worked in the previous years come back for this house.
I mean, the first year specifically, that was a good solid year. I mean, not in the best location, being in the disaster queue.
You're talking when it was the scare zone, or you're talking when they first made it into the house?
Whenever it was in the house, it was in disaster queue. So you had to, like every house in there, you would have to wait until it got really dark to get a good experience out of it. Rest in peace, obviously, this year. I'm glad they went out on a high with Run. I really enjoyed that. But no, I'm very, very excited for Walking Dead.
And the other two as well are the two original houses. I think particularly the Tomb of the Ancients one.
Yeah.
Because I'm being told that it's a sort of a combination between the Mummy and Indiana Jones. So, if they go down that route, I'm really pumped for that.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I know Lightning Gulch appeals to me for like westerns and that whole aesthetic, but Tomb of the Ancients, I think that's going to surprise up and be very, very detailed, very beautiful, but also very scary. And of course, I can't wait for Krampus. I love that movie. It's not a great movie, but now knowing that aspect that they have been thinking about it being a house. Since even before the movie was made, that's just incredible. Like I really appreciated always like the Dark Christmas scare zone that they had in Hollywood. That was my favorite thing. And so then once Krampus got announced that it was going to be a movie, I felt like it had to be a house based on how good that scare zone was. So now we just have to get to the point where it's here so we can go in it.
Well, I'll give you all an exclusive. I haven't told anyone this yet, but the next book I'm working on is about the Universal monsters.
Oh, God, Craig's gonna die.
Exclusive for the Diz. There we go.
Oh, wow.
Logan's been asking me for weeks, and I won't tell him. So now he knows via the Diz. I'm probably going to get sacked, but hey. But the reason I mention that is, as you know, they are what's the word they use now?
They're trying to reimagine it. They're bringing back the shared universe.
Yeah, so that they'll be starting to filter through, I think, next year with Tom Cruise in The Mummy.
Yes.
So they're also looking at that and saying, well, we know these are coming up. We can use these to help market the event, and we can help the event market these movies. So look for them in the future.
Oh, that is very exciting.
Very, very exciting.
I didn't even think of that. That'll be a lot of fun for sure. Especially if they're going to approach it in that same way you're saying with Krampus, like going into thinking like, how can we continue to, the synergy? How can we keep that going? Oh,
it's incredible.
Yeah, I'm super excited now for next year.
It's brilliant.
Modern Universal is all about synergy now. It's good.
No, it's good for them, and it's good
great
for
for
all
us,
of us. If I ever move away from Florida, which I don't know if I will at this point, I think Halloween Horror Nights will be the only thing that I will truly miss being away.
I thought you were going to say it was going to be the thing that'll keep pulling you back.
It would be the thing that keeps pulling me back, too. The other thing that would have helped would have been the Osborne Lights over at Hollywood Studios, but we can forget about that now. So now it's just solely Halloween Horror Nights, and it is reason enough to live here. It is the greatest event at any theme park, hands down, and it's something I look forward to every year. So,
well, there are haunts. There are ghost houses all over Europe, and then they're all over the States, but there are none like Halloween Horror Nights.
Agreed.
Period.
No, my local one where I grew up, I only attended it once, and I thought it was cool at the time until I came to Halloween Horror Nights, and that has shattered me ever wanting to go back there ever again. But hey, that's reality. So, that's all I got. This has been an absolutely fascinating conversation. Thank you so much, Chris. Before we go, though, I just want you to remind everyone out there.
What's the book again? Where can we get it?
What's the book? Where can we get it? Where can we find you? Just plug it all away one more time. We want to make sure everyone knows.
Well, Scare Zone podcast that I do with Logan, and obviously Scotty Too Hotty. I should mention Scott because he's on the show as well. He's a WWE wrestler
and a
fan of WWE,
a friend of the Diz as well too. We've had him on a couple times.
Cool. I also do another podcast called Diz After Dark, which we talk a little bit more about
I'm
Disney.
With that.
Yep.
Yeah. We sort of get drunk and talk about Disney. It's quite fun. And also hhnunofficial.com, and then if you go there, that's got links to where you can find me on Twitter and Facebook and all the other social media. So I like to stay pretty active on that. People send me questions, I love answering them and trying to help them get the best out of the event, because I want it to be a success as all us other fans. And then the other thing you can do, there is the book. It's available in all good bookstores. Or the cheapest, quickest, and easiest way, and where I get my largest royalty checks, is from Amazon. So if you want to help me out, go to Amazon. That's the best place.
You heard it here first. Of course, we will have links to everything in our show notes, especially a link straight to Amazon where you can purchase that book. This year's version, not last year's version, as I read off at the beginning of the show.
Last year's version is completely out of date, and this one's been completely overhauled. But Target, I believe, have just bought a truckload of them.
Really?
Oh.
I don't know why. I don't know where they're going to put them in the country, but Target has got loads and loads of the old edition. They've just bought them.
I'm going to have to stop at a couple Targets on the way home.
Yeah, we're going to do some research
just
now.
to see, because that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right up there with Oprah now. So
I don't think I'm a few dollars behind her just yet. That's for sure.
You're officially Oprah level now. It's been declared by us. So
if I check under my seat, am I going to find a free book?
You get a book, and you get a book. Yeah.
I wish. But no, Chris, thank you so much. This has been absolutely incredible. I highly recommend everyone who is watching and listening, make sure you're following along with everything Chris does. You can tell the man's brilliant. So get in on all of that. And of course, if you want to continue following us, make sure you head to DizUnplugged.com for our show notes and all of our other shows on the Diz Unplugged podcast network. That's where you'll also find links to our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, this, that, and the other. We're everywhere. So make sure you are paying attention. You're subscribed to us on YouTube, iTunes, and everywhere else. I say it every week, and I don't know if anyone listens, but that's your problem, not mine. Or maybe it is my problem. Who cares? I should. Well, I'm just going down a rabbit hole here. But thank you all so much for tuning in, watching, and listening. Again, thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate having you. Hopefully we can have you actually in the studio whenever you're in town. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll set that up. That'll be awesome. Thank you for having me as well.
No, thank you. I'd love to get your thoughts on the event afterwards, after you get to actually see it. So very,
Yeah.
very
For
much
the-
looking forward to it.
For the first time ever, Oliver doesn't feel outnumbered with the level of Britishers
I know. And you
versus
guys are
Americans in the room.
you guys are on the same side of the room too. So it's two British looking back at us.
It's just segregation.
Yeah,
That's all it is. Let's be honest.
It feels very strange.
Can't come past that counter.
But thank you all so much again. And we will be back next week with another episode of the Diz Unplugged Universal Edition. And until then, you'll have to wait for our resolutions one more week. Bye, everyone.